Welcome to 40 Below Zero, an international podcast about life with invisible illnesses, hosted by two guys living with multiple sclerosis. Coming to you from the Keystone State of Pennsylvania, I'm your co-host Nix, and with me on this ride is Terry, a Londoner who calls Ontario home. We're so happy you're here with us as we continue to try and normalize a life that is anything but. So let's get into it.
We're recording.
Welcome, everybody. Happy to have you back as always. Terry, how are you, my friend?
Yeah, I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Better than the video I posted the other day. I don't know if our viewers, listeners, check me out on Instagram, had a chance to see that little reel on Instagram that I put up. That was what extreme fatigue looks like for me. I was very tired, very overheated, and I get the spasms like that. So I take gabapentin, I take dalfampridine, medical marijuana, and sometimes none of that helps. Sometimes you still end up like that. So those are the days you just gotta like clock out and put on the meditation music and just rest. That's literally when I get to that point, that's when I know that not only have I met my limit, but I'm out of spoons. My spoons have been melted down. I'm way past my threshold of what I should have done that day, and really wasn't even that much. But, in my opinion, it wasn't that much, but my nervous system had other plans, obviously. So, but I'm doing better than that. Bounce back. Hang on. Apparently,
I hear
sirens back there.
But what about mentally? Like when you're going through that shit, are you okay?
I am now. 10 years ago, I was not. I used to like really freak out and probably do, probably make it last longer, by, getting nervous and worried and, just having heightened, emotions. But now I'm kind of like, okay, I know this. Yep. I overdid it. And that comes with experience. You just kind of know what to expect. So it came out of nowhere. Was not unexpected though, because of the heat and the activity level. So I'm okay now, but mentally, like I said, 10 years ago, I was freaking out. So,
Okay, but now you're okay.
yeah, I mean, as long as it's hard to explain. So how do you say, as long as it behaves normally? So
As expected.
right.
Yeah.
It's not a normal thing at all, but it's normal for me. So it was a normal occurrence. That's the most dry clinical way I can say that. So no, I didn't freak
Dude,
out.
I get it.
Now, had I had taken the time to rest, having taken the time to rest and calm down and cool down, because I did shortly after that video, I did basically do like as much of an ice plunge as I could. I got into like a very cold shower and sat there for probably about 5 minutes to try to, bring all the swelling back in line.
Yeah.
So then I laid down, like I said, I put on my meditation music and I just kind of like controlled my breathing and it was like a cool, dark space. And I just tried to shut out everything. And thankfully I have Kit, and she can just like, obviously she knows what's going on better than I do most of the time. She's kind of like, I knew you were heading there. But she's great about, just understanding that the rest of the day I can't really contribute, and that's okay. And so that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm very lucky in that respect.
That puts you at ease knowing that no one's expecting anything from you.
It helps immeasurably,
Cool,
So I'm
man.
doing much better than that.
Well, when you were shooting that video, what were you thinking? Were you okay? Or were you just like,
Well, I just wanted to highlight, so many of our fans only see this. They see, me in this little box sitting in basically my man cave with all my stuff around me.
Yeah.
and they and um, a lot of times only the highlights get put online. Like, they only everybody only posts like the good stuff of their life. Um, so I wanted to just say, hey, look, this is also who I am. Sometimes I,
It's always staged.
yeah, exactly,
Sorry.
yeah, exactly. Sometimes, um, so I wanted to highlight, some days I can't pick up a glass of water, and I said it just for you. But that's some days that's what it is, and some days it's worse than that. Some days I shake worse than that. Um, and when I have people witness those tremors, naturally they're like wanting to take act, like they want to take action. They want to try to help. They want to try to, do something in the, right then. And there's really nothing you can do, and it doesn't really hurt often. Like that kind of shaking, that didn't really hurt. It's when my legs cramp and my legs shake, they get kind of painful. So then I take a little bit more pain medication, and then, just try to deal the best I can. But, at 46, I want to be careful about how much pain medication I take, because I know I have there's a lot of life ahead of me, and I don't want to top out, so to speak, on how much pain medicine I can take. Um, and not to say that I'm like some kind of like tough guy who's like, I don't need painkillers. It's just I take as much as I need, and I hope that the minimum is enough. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
I get you, man. You can see I'm smiling as you're saying
Yeah.
stuff, and I'm writing because I'm like, oh, I don't want to cut you off, but damn, bro.
The people, they don't know what to do. They don't know what to say, and I don't, like you. I don't know what to say or do. I also just kind of say, don't worry about it. It'll go away, and it does. So, and I go, now you see it. There it is. That's why. That's why I put up the caption. And we had who? What guest did we just have? We had one of our. We have so many amazing guests, and they all run together in my brain. Um, One of our guests recently said that sometimes it's more visible than others, and so that's why I put that up.
One of our guests said that.
I try my best there. Listen, thankfully for this show, you do all the hard work. I just show up. Otherwise,
Not at all, bro.
it would never get done.
Don't put that pressure on me. Mine are staged. All my old videos. I don't know if anyone goes down my Instagram all the way down where I look like a 10-year-old kid. Uh, they're all staged, bro. I'm not gonna,
No,
like, hey, let's go to my mattress. That's the.
no, no, I got you there. I totally, totally. You'll probably get,
Okay, that was too
yeah,
much.
you'll probably get flagged for that kind of stuff. Hello, sir. How are you? And welcome.
What's up,
Thank
buddy?
you. Thank you for having me. I can't complain too badly. Nobody will listen, right? So that's my
Yeah.
story and I'm sticking to it.
So joining us today is Chris Mann. He is him and Terry have been acquainted through support groups,
Yeah,
and he's joining us
I met
today.
him.
And it's great timing, honestly. Happy you're here with us. Men's Mental Health Month. We're going to talk a little bit about the importance of the groups, the online groups. I know we talk a lot about them, and we want to hear your story.
Real talk.
Real talk.
Yes, sir.
Where would you like me to start, gentlemen? My story or how important the groups are?
Let's start with how we got here.
How we got here. So I was diagnosed way back in 2013. It happened very, very quickly. So I was walking around, people at work thought I was drunk. I was taking a corner and just about falling over, right? So one thing led to another. About a month later, after Christmas vacation, I came down over the course of 3 days with something called optic neuritis, which I had no idea about. I was bounced from my eye doctor to a specialist. Specialist said you need to see a neurological ophthalmologist. I think he basically an eye specialist, neuro specialist at one of the hospitals. Unfortunately, he was away on holidays. I never made it to see him. Ended up in the ER about 3:30 one morning after waking up in so much shock that the body was literally freaking out. So wife rushed me to the ER, and that started the whole ball of wax. So I wanting to say
Yeah, yeah.
something, Terry?
Everyone does that. Everyone does that. I start waving and they stop talking and they're like, "Yeah, I got so many questions, man." First of all,
Ask away.
cool tattoo you have right here. I don't know if you see that, Nick. It's sticking
Mm,
out of. Okay. Yo, what kind of a guy were you when you were off balance and you're walking, you noticed it. Were you like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah, you know what? I didn't really have time to stop and think about it. Looking back on it, I had moved. I met my wife in Calgary, where I worked for 8 years, and we decided to make the move back home to Victoria here, which was home for me, where I grew up, and to the house that I grew up in, to give my mom a hand with my grandfather, who was ill. And then after my grandfather passing a year later, it was my mom. So that was tough, all while the MS diagnosis was unfolding. And on top of it, literally the same day I was diagnosed, or the diagnosis started, we found out we were pregnant with our first. So
Ooh. So you're saying it was not a stressful time in your life. Everything was nice and
it
smooth.
was a very, very high stress
Yes.
situation.
Wow.
The move here for me luckily saw me continuing the career I was in. I was a engineering design draftsman, so I moved back to the office here in Victoria, and they really couldn't keep me all that busy, so I ended up doing a lot of work for our different offices across Canada. And yeah, I it just was crazy busy, crazy stress,
Yeah.
fast pace. um so yeah, the optic neuritis, the steroids made me sick. Back to the ER to try to figure out, I had super low, I think it's called hypo or hyper calcemia, so super low potassium. I was never told that after doing steroids I shouldn't be working out or sweating, and that's unfortunately what happened. We were doing some home renovations, and I was sweating, and I literally fell over. So back to the ER, I was put on something called key pills, which are like horse pills, potassium. Unfortunately, the key pills made me sick, so it was back to the ER. It was
Yo, whoa.
I was in the ER like weekly for the first 8 weeks or so of my journey. It was crazy.
How impactful was the neuritis? How much of your vision got clipped?
You know what? So I woke up, the first day I really noticed it, I had pain around my eye. I had an appointment with a massage therapist. The massage therapist said, I'll try to help you maybe. That didn't work. The second day, I was like, okay, this is not getting any better. I noticed a little bit of blurring. Went to the eye doctor, and over 3 days, I lost complete vision in that one eye.
Phew.
Needless to say, all said and done, after the steroids, it is my strong eye, and still my strong eye. So um,
Question: how are you doing mentally when you lost your eye? Because I'd be crying, man.
you know what? That's really when I thought, what the heck is going on, and started
Say it
to
all,
pay
man.
attention. And yeah, it kind of freaked me out, right? I knew I needed to figure out, is it MS first of all, and if it is, what can I do to slow it down or stop? Help put the brakes on it, because I don't want to be left with one eye Chris. So.
Yeah.
So, my question is, have you heard of MS before you got it?
No, you know what? I had heard of it. I'd actually done a fundraiser way, way back when. I was big into cycling, so I had done I believe the MS Society here in Victoria had put on some sort of cycling event that I took part on. I was maybe 12 years old at that point, but I'd heard of it. Did I know what it was or how it affected people? Not a chance, right? So yeah. So, and that first year and a half, the amount of information that's coming at you is just
It
mind-boggling, right?
is.
So,
Yeah. Yep, and
yeah.
I very similar story here. Um, it was my dominant eye that was affected. It has recovered, and and unfortunately, I had a second neuritis attack, and I lost it over here. But I do understand the fear of saying, "Oh, this I might not have my good eye, quote unquote, anymore." Like, you know what I mean? And that's terrifying a little bit.
Yeah, it took a few months before I realized just how crazy my case was, and I didn't really pay attention. My neurologist here in Victoria, when he first saw me in the ER, said, basically, you have three huge lesions on your brain. Have you ever been in an accident? I said, I mountain bike downhill. I said, I probably hit my head a few times. And he's like, no, he's like, this is major trauma. He's like, have you ever been in a car accident where you've had a brain injury? I said, no. And he
Wow.
says, well,
That's crazy. I've never like, this is a side of the story I've never heard from anyone before, where they're like asking what happened here. What are the lesions? You know what I mean? Like I would have thought they would have known from just seeing them.
I literally said to him, he says, he came into the room and he says, well, I have some bad news and good news. And I said, well, what's the bad news? And he says, well, you have 3 huge lesions on your brain. And I turned to him and I said, are you telling me I have brain cancer? And he says, no, it's not that bad, I'm afraid.
It's not that bad. It's not that bad. This one is incurable.
He says, basically, he says, 80% chance. He says, my money, he says, you have MS. He says, we need an MRI. And yeah, that just, as I say, one thing led to another. And
Let me just back up a second. Let me back up a second. So the doctor walks in and goes, whew, did you fall off a building? Because man, your brain is, whew. Oh, it's just MS. Don't worry about that.
you know what? I have to give him credit a
Yeah,
little bit.
pretty much.
He very dry sense of humor, gentleman. It was, you have to remember, he'd gotten called in probably out of bed at
Sure.
3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning into the ER to come and look at my, CT scan, and said I need an MRI. Unfortunately, at the time I was, I think about 3.5 pounds over the weight limit for the MRI table that we had here in Victoria, and the tech would not let it slide. The doctor was, making me take my shoes and my clothes off. Asked me if I needed to go to the bathroom, and I'm like, dude, like,
Yeah.
so I literally, the wife had to drive me steroids, and then out of the ER, and the wife had to drive me 4 or 5, about 3, 4 hours up the island, north of the island, to a mobile unit that was newer that could handle a gentleman of my stature. So
Respect for telling us that, bro. That's so cool. You told us this before. You're tall, right?
yeah, like 6'2", and I was, yeah, was overweight, didn't look after myself right, and the job was everything. Everything revolved around, I needed to keep the paycheck, I needed the job, right? And I was making good money, right? So I figured I'd spend 8
Yeah.
years in Alberta working oil and gas related, and got in when things were hot and got out when things started to slow down, and I had life by the balls, so to speak, right? So I was untouchable,
Till.
or thought I was. Thought I was.
Yeah.
Me too, bro.
Exactly,
So
exactly.
often we hear that story, that where your life just basically goes. Phew. Um, so how, and again, Terry likes mental health month. So mentally, talk about how you got through that portion, if you don't mind.
You know what? It happened so quick that the mental aspect of it didn't really hit me until much later in my diagnosis, I think, and I started to process a lot, which was probably after the first year and a half, and finally finding the treatment that was going to make a difference, and being given access to it very early on. Up until that point, I didn't have time to process.
Sure, I understand completely. What you had just told us, there was a mountain of things to focus on, um, and your own health wasn't necessarily one of them mentally. You just were doing, and yeah.
Yeah.
Shoot. What was the thing that the access you were given? What were you on?
So basically, after getting that mobile MRI, I was about another 8 weeks or so. I had my second relapse. We were over in the Vancouver area. My wife's side of the family are dairy farmers, so we were over on the farm outside of Vancouver. I woke up at night. I was tossing my cookies. I couldn't walk properly. Thought nothing of it too much. Thought, oh, this is weird, but woke up the next morning feeling okay. Um, excuse me, came home after a couple of days, went to my GP, and my GP did a quick exam and said, no, you've had a relapse, and I need to, who's the neurologist that you saw in the ER? And literally while I'm sitting in her office, she called the neurologist, and the secretary said, "I'm sorry, he's busy," and she says, "No, like you need to put this guy on the phone." I was very lucky, and she adamantly told and finally put him on the phone, and it was literally what I remember her saying to him was, It's not a matter whether you're seeing him or not today." She says, "I need to know when you want him there." She says, "And I will come with him if need be." And I was like, "Woof!" Right? Like, so that kind of was the first clue that, wow, this maybe isn't your typical case. Um, I had a relapse every 8 weeks or so, back to back, for a grand total of probably 6 or 8 over the first, yeah.
No, I'm raising
uh,
I'm reacting the way that I am because almost
a
almost the
di- a
exact
di-
same time frame for me for the first 2 years. It was like as soon as it hit, it was every other month I was in the hospital dealing with something else for the first like 2.5, 3 years, and it was like same thing. It was like 8 or 10 inpatient stays within Chris, I think within the first 5 years of my diagnosis, I had 12 or 14 inpatient stays. It was crazy.
So it's because you were diagnosed with RRMS, you're getting the relapses and you're getting remission, whatever, and then eventually it stops and it becomes secondary progressive.
Eventually stops, becomes secondary progressive. Correct.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. Because I used to have relapses too the first 3, 4 years. I got
Eh,
prednisone like 500
Ugh.
times. Go ahead, sorry.
no, that's all right. Yeah, ultimately, I failed my first treatment after being on it about 6 months. It made me a total monster. I hate to say it, but it was one of the four main drugs that I call the crabs, is how I remember them, and it's Copaxone, Rebif, Anavex, and Betaseron, right? So
Yo, we talked about this already. Yeah.
yeah, I was on the Rebif, and it made me a total monster. Luckily, neurologist here in Victoria said, "I really don't know what to do with you." Gave me the option and said, "If you're my," yeah, and another thing that I never clicked into, said, "If you're my son," he said, "I would put you on Tisabri." And I said, "Okay." And he says, "But if you have this underlying condition called the JC virus," he said, "you may not want to go on it." And I said, "Why?" And he says, "Well," he says, "there's something called PML, and if you get it, you die." And I was like, "Okay, well, can we test for this?" And went through the steps, tested for it. Sure enough, I'm JC positive. And he said, "Would you still be willing to go on it?" And I was like, "No." Um, looking back on it, had he told me that,
Here we
my
go.
my blood work may have been monitored, and that, right, like, yeah, right. So, hindsight, but nothing I can do about that, right? Fast forward, I was sent over. The best thing he ever did for me was sent me over to the top doctor over at the UBC MS clinic in Vancouver. I went over. I didn't know it. I was in the middle of a relapse when I went over. Ended up in a Richmond General Hospital in Vancouver, undergoing steroids. Never made it back to Victoria. The ferry, blah blah blah. So ended up having a nice 3 day stay in the hospital there. And yeah, but UBC gave me access, put me as a secondary drug. I'd gone through the steps, put me on Gilenia. Gilenia stopped the relapses, but did not slow the progression whatsoever. After being on Gilenia for a further 6 months or so, was told that they would have what I needed. Unfortunately, it was in between clinical trials had ended. They had run, I think, the largest clinical trial, I think, in North America, but I found out later, it was only 40 people.
Wait, wait, wait.
That's what I was told. I don't know if this is correct or not, but they
I
knew
mean
that
This
the
is a
drug had some,
horror movie.
but I kind of, right, like,
This
looking
is
back on it, I
not
was like,
real.
I know stuff I found out after the fact, right? But was told, it had the side effect profile they knew, and there were potentially some things that could really, but that basically the neurologist I had there told me the lesser of the two evils. He says the MS is going to get you. He says the treatment. He says you roll the dice and hopefully you escape the bullets of the side effects. So
Hopefully is
yeah,
not the word to use.
yeah,
Well,
I
Jesus.
that's why we all work as hard as we do to raise as much money for the things that, for the research and for all that, so that somebody down the
exactly.
line doesn't have to they can look back on our horror story and say, "Can you imagine 25 years ago, this is how life was, and now we just take
Yeah.
this pill and it's
Yeah,
gone," or whatever?
take the
I'm really
pill.
curious
That's right.
how the whole time your wife took it because you were married when you got diagnosed, right?
I was, you know what? She had a hard time. Well, I won't say she had a hard time. I stole the limelight off her and her pregnancy. Sorry, unfortunately. Sorry.
That's okay.
That was
Take
a
your time.
totally hard thing to accept, right? That I took that away from her. And that's something I'll never be able to give back to her. Sorry. I,
No need,
there's
Bro, I
certain
love you,
things that
man.
no need to apologize.
I
Nah,
love
man.
you too, buddy. So
You have no idea, dude.
it's life throws you curveballs, right? And
You have
it's how
no idea.
it's how you react.
Yes, that's it.
What doesn't kill you makes you
Bro,
stronger.
I always say, Nick, I always say, the kids, I had so much guilt, bro. That's guilt. I had so much guilt over a fucking dog.
Yeah,
You have
but
no idea. You have no idea, man. I was like, not the person, and I'm like, to have kids, dude, you know,
Well, she unfortunately doesn't that uh, I won't say unfortunately, but doesn't know me prior to MS.
um, my kids were 9 and 10, and they have very few memories of me before the MS.
Yeah,
So, and the memories they do have as the younger side was just me in the hospital and being scared that dad was always going into the hospital. So, um,
exactly. Yeah, she's seen an awful lot for a little 12-year-old, but is one of the most compassionate human beings that I know. Back to the story, UBC finally presented, and the opportunity was waiting for a drug that I later found out. I was told it was going to be 8 injections, is what I was originally told. To find out later, it was 8 days of IV infusion. Was a treatment that was brand new called alentuzumab or Lemtrada by MS
oh
name.
yeah,
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so I basically said, where do I sign? Doctor wanted me to get on it as quickly as I could, really push that I came over to Vancouver and let them do it once it hit the market, so to speak. And I said, no way. Like, if this is gonna kick my butt, like you're telling me it might, I'd rather be at home in my own bed. So how about we, And he said, well, we gotta figure out, infusion clinic in Victoria, blah blah blah. So I waited about an extra 6 months for that. Um, Probably there again, hindsight, maybe should have not, should have, but I waited, got the infusions done here. As far as I know, I was the first person to go through with treatment and open the doors sort of on the island for treatment with it. I was lucky enough. I was big into photography outside of my regular 9 to 5, so I decided, what the hell, I was gonna video document and journal my first 5 days of treatment. I got to meet the nurse ahead of time that was going to be doing my infusions. She was a like a 30-year veteran of working in the BC Cancer Foundation here in Victoria and doing chemotherapy infusions. So I was in great hands. First 5 days, it sure kicked my butt, but I was, as I said, in good hands. And afterwards, yeah, I went backwards down the EDSS scale,
Oof.
which my neurologist, no, they looked at me like, what? Like, I went to Vancouver and they said, oh, it's worked, it's done its thing. You've slid like almost 2 full points back down the EDSS
Oh, back
scale.
down. My bad. My bad. I was
Yes, from
confused.
right. So I went from like say a 4
Yeah,
to
yeah,
back
yeah,
down to
yeah,
a
yeah,
2,
yeah.
right? And they were like, cool. And the cool thing was is I was a bit of a guinea pig. I still had the neuro that I had in Victoria following me, so I got to see him, and they were in utter disbelief. The cool part of it was is that opened the doors for the neurologist here in Victoria to prescribe it to people here.
nice, nice.
So
That's a big deal.
yeah, it was cool. It was a big
It's a
deal.
heck of, that's a heck of
I
a
actually
contribution. That's for sure.
well, I reached out and I said, look, I said, if you have anybody thinking about doing this and, the consequences, I said, if they want to talk to somebody that's been through it, I said, I know as a doctor, you're not supposed to do this, but I said, I'm allowing you. I said, reach out. And he actually called. I had one patient that I got to meet, and yeah, it was cool. I said to the guy, I said to this young gentleman, I said, my I don't know why you wouldn't. I said, but that's just me, and kind of went through my story, and he ultimately made the decision to go through treatment with it. So,
And do you still talk to him?
you know what? I don't. I've tried to reach
Okay.
out to him. I know who he is. That was an individual that really did not want to due to his career and what he was up to, didn't really want it widely publicized that he had been
Yeah.
Yeah, I can respect that.
yeah,
Yep.
diagnosed with it. So, and I don't think still, so I respect that, right?
What
So
about the video you were making? Remember you're following your journey with Limtrada. They actually used the video, no?
no, so I ended up doing the video. From that, the nurse that I got to meet, I told her and asked her if it was all right that I had a camera set up so that I could do these videos.
Yeah.
And she looked at me and she's like, "Holy crap, like I can't believe." And I did not know it, but behind my back, she went to the head nurse, the head infusion nurse that was going to be training her on how to do this. Um, she turned around and went to the drug company. And the next thing I know, I had the head of marketing from Canada operations from the drug company calling me and said, I'll be in Vancouver next week, and how about I pop over to Victoria? I'd really like to meet you and the family. And it was kind
Cool.
of, yeah, it was
All
kind of
right.
cool, right? So
Cool.
got to
Yeah.
meet this gentleman, and basically got asked, he said, "You're going to be doing this." He said, "Is there anything you need?" And I said, "Well, no, like I'm not looking for any sort of." And he's like, "Well, I can't, legally in Canada, the drug companies can't give you a monetary kickback." And I said, "I'm not looking for that." But he says, "There's other things we can do." Kind of like, right? And he's like,
Yeah.
if there's equipment or something. And I'm like, "No, dude, I'm like, that's not at all. I don't want to be,
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
somebody
Yeah.
go,
Yeah.
oh, well, so I just know I stayed totally on my own, did it totally on my own, and
Honestly,
started uploading them.
honestly, good call.
Yeah,
Good call.
yeah. Sorry, after what I've seen, what I've learned, yeah, Terry and I have been through this, and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, the pharmaceutical world makes the rocking world go round,
That's
right?
it.
So ultimately they're the ones with the money.
Yes,
So
sir.
they're the ones that fund, I'm gonna say 80, 85, 90% of the research that happens. Unfortunately, they also get this sort of funnel where that research happens, as far as from what I understand. So
Correctamundo. Uh, you
yeah,
gotta it's a slippery slope for sure.
So, did you get any tattoos when you got diagnosed or all these before?
so I knew this question was. I knew you were going to ask this for some strange reason. So I
Yeah.
sat down the other night. I
Yeah.
had five when I was working the job that I was working. Of the five, I had probably one that was visible if I had short sleeves on.
Okay.
That number after I was diagnosed significantly, like almost tripled.
Ink therapy,
Okay.
Um,
sir.
It makes
yeah,
sense, bro. It makes
you know
sense.
what? It was ink therapy. It was, nothing. I can handle the pain. I can handle, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
the knuckles, right? And that's the reminder
I
why I
love
do
it,
what
bro.
I do. And it's the daughter's first and middle name, right? So
Yeah. Oh, yo, bro, respect. I wish you were in London, bro. Seriously.
I went nuts. I went
I
nuts.
see the one
The
in the
wife,
chest is sticking out.
I,
Like,
I got a big chunk. That was,
yo, what?
it was just a game of,
Yeah.
the pain, what I could endure mentally, pain wise, right? And the chest, I just kept up in the bar, and finally it was the chest piece, and the chest piece was, it was interesting. I will leave it at that. So
I don't mean
yeah,
to bring this up before we finish, but I'm just curious. Are
no, of
you
course.
more emotional because of MS? Obviously, because of what's going on, but
Yeah, I've been told that because the lesions on where they are on my brain makes
yeah,
me more emotional. I was always a bit of an emotional guy, but it has just accentuated that tenfold, right? So
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
too, man.
So the
yeah.
other part about what I wanted to touch base with was, since you and Terry met through the groups, so I wanted to talk about if you wanted to talk on your experience with the support groups and what you get from them, like, because there's people out there who are very hesitant to share that with even like a group of 8 to 10 people. So if you wouldn't mind saying,
Of course, it gives you a voice, it gives you somewhere to vent, right? So it's nothing but, and it gives you somewhere somebody. Myself, I think the more that I can tell people about certain things, certain treatments, certain that have helped me, that maybe I'll get the word out there. Um, One comes to mind right off the top of my head that I'd love to mention to you guys. That was a through physiotherapy here at one of the hospitals. I got told that I had severe spasticity in one of my legs. Being the bigger gentleman that I am, I started going through about $1,100 worth of Botox every 3 months into my leg. Whoa! The gentleman that was doing it, physiatrist, pain doctor, said to me, you're kind of under my care now. Said I'm starting a clinical trial. He says I'd be keen to know if you're interested. So what is it? He said, instead of the Botox, he says, I'll treat you once. He says, I might have to treat you 6 months, a year later. He says, hopefully I treat you once and I never treat that same spot again. So instead of Botox, they go in with a probe. The probe sprays nitrogen gas. The nitrogen gas mixes with the water in your body to form basically a little ice ball at the end of this probe. It's called cryoneurolysis. It is an up and coming procedure. Check it out on YouTube. The doctor's name is Dr. Paul Winston. Amazing individual. And treats basically uses this procedure for spasticity and has been teaching other specialist doctors all over the world. Um, Third world countries can't afford Botox. They can afford a few bucks of nitrogen.
I wrote nitrogen therapy. I don't know why, but
Cryoneurolysis. Cryoneurolysis. But if you type in Dr. Winston ice therapy, you'll get.
thanks, man. That's a new
Cool.
one for me.
I was just gonna say the support groups are nothing but a good thing, and yeah, there's people out there that they don't. So you come and you listen. You don't have to, you know, open your mouth the first time, right? And hopefully you get something out of it. The last time I was over at UBC, I met a gentleman sitting in the waiting room, and I unfortunately I was called in, didn't really get to exchange contact information and sort of put it on my now the new neuro that I have there. I said to her, I said, look, I said, I know you can't tell me who he is. I said, I know you can't tell him who I am, but I said, I'm going to write down my information. And I said, I'd like you just to slide it to him. And sure enough, ended up talking on the phone with him, but, and mentioned the men's group to him. But, yeah, I don't, everybody's on their own journey. So I can't.
It's always awkward for me to tell someone there's a support group of any kind because I always know what they're thinking, or because I used to think like, nah, I don't want to be part of a sappy group where they're all crying and you know what I mean? So I get it. I always tell people just come,
I
turn
get
off,
you.
just like you said, right? Turn off your video, don't
Eh,
talk, just see
you,
what
you
happens.
got, exactly. You got to give them the information. What they do with it, Terry, is up to them, sir.
You're right. You're right.
Last but not least, do I get a little bit of a
Yep.
chuckle out of
I
that,
was
or
gonna
what?
ask you about that because I was like, I think I recognize that shirt. That is one of the funniest shirts. I love it.
Oh, I didn't think it was
I,
going to say that. I thought it was going to say
I,
Compton. Uh,
I've worn it to a few of my appointments, and I like there's those who click in and kind of comment, and there's those that it totally just goes right over their head, right? So
You get it, you
yeah,
get it.
yeah,
And then with MS, what
exactly.
do they say? With MS, you don't get it until you get it.
Until you get it,
Well, we're
well,
trying to change that.
yeah.
Well, thanks for stopping
well,
by and chatting with us, Chris. I appreciate it, man.
well, thank you, gentlemen. It's been my pleasure. So thanks for having me on and everything that the two of you do. So
Like Terry always says, welcome to the family.
There you go.
awesome. Well, thank you. I was worried that there was going to be some sort of hazing or
Yeah.
indoctrination, but
I will
I
say the hazing and the indoctrination is the 8 hospital stays in 2 years. That's how you get inducted.
Uh,
That's how you get
okay, is that the requirements? Okay, that's
Actually, it's
I did my time. I
a
did my time then.
that's
So
it.
awesome,
Alright, brother.
perfect. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good one.
Talk soon.
All right, man. Take care.
Cheers.
What a great guy. Just goes to show you how close to the surface your true emotions are, because he triggered himself a couple of times into showing his deep love for his family just by saying his family. So mad respect to him for that, for being so honest and open. But what a great story. Very similar story to me. See, it just goes to show you, um, and what a positive attitude through all of it.
No words, man.
Just a great,
Yeah, that was
just a great guy I got to chat with. I'm glad we were able to connect. Thank you, Terry, for inviting him onto the show so I could hear his story. Um, and thanks everybody for hanging out with us to the end, like you always do. We appreciate you. Terry will say like,
Thanks,
share.
guys.
Terry will say like, share, and subscribe,
Don't forget to like, share, subscribe,
and
leave a comment.
and we'll talk
We'll respond.
and we'll talk soon.
Bye.
Cheers.
So check us out at 40belowzero.com. That's 4, the letter T, below zero.com. Our email address is info@40belowzero.com. And if you don't want to email us, no problem. We're on Instagram as @40belowzero. Awesome. Looking forward to hearing from you, and we'll talk soon.